all members present and accounted for. Before we approve the agenda, there has not been the appropriate meeting for item D under new business, the electrical wiring project, so we will table that for the time being.
Facility will meet next Monday. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll deal with it in the future. Having said that, does anybody else have any additions, changes? I would look for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Motion by Jerry, seconded by Kurt. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Approval of the minutes from the preceding 3 meetings. That includes our workshop meeting on October 4th. Has everyone had a chance to review? Changes, corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Brenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Rob. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. We have no scheduled presenters, so we'll jump down to the finance report. Josh?
Sure. First page is the cash flow worksheet, and just a couple things of note on this. Top right-hand corner, the outstanding loans, there's no loan outstanding at present, anticipation certificates. Like we have in the last couple of years, we'll have to do out at the end of January and have some funds there in order to make our payments for debt service. Currently, right now, those are estimates for the Goodhue County taxes at $375, 2 payments. It should be a little bit higher, but I'm a little conservative on that. Essentially, what you see there, all cash would be the school district's cash, and that's the idea is clean up payments for August and September. And as you see, the balance goes down as we go throughout the rest of the calendar year. Once we get to January, and I have the spreadsheet through my office, but when we get to January, we make the debt service payments, we go negative in cash as we had the last several years, and we'll need to borrow again for anticipation. And that'll probably be a good discussion for us to have at the November board meeting. The next page is going to be kind of a summary of the last month reconciled versus last year. And a couple things to note in here now. The majority of the audited entries are in and complete, so there should be no more effect really on the cash. So what you see in the cash balances now will probably be most likely what you'll see at the end of the audit. The plan is to have the audit presented at the November meeting as well. I just have a few more things that I need to wrap up, a couple more things that they need to wrap up, and we should be good to go. But it has gone pretty well. A couple things to note for cash, about $50,000 ahead of where we were at this point last year. In the general fund. Food service is doing well, about $16,000 ahead of last year. Community ed, quite well from last year, and the reason we were so far behind last year because of a large tax shift, and the percentage got so large that it affected community ed, which it normally doesn't affect, at least not to the extent it did last year. Now they're kind of back onto par where they've been in the past. So even though you see a large increase there, that's typically what community ed has been at in the past. It was just that large decrease last year for the tax shift. The construction fund at 0, as that's all closed out now. Debt service, Fund 7 is really kind of plus or minus what it was at this point last year. Last year we made a manual adjustment to decrease the levy by $200,000 to kind of help offset some of the increase in the levy, and we were able to do that again this year, and that'll kind of show in the truth in taxation when we have that. But we are going to make another manual adjustment of about $200,000, again being set to fulfill our needs to make that debt service payment. Trust and agency is about $3,000 ahead of where we were at this point last year. We had a couple of extra donations for scholarships. 25 is the OPEB, about $118,000. We're behind where we were at this point last year. And remember, we did draw $126,000 out for fiscal year 12 to help kind of offset that retiree obligation that we have. So, really the net of that whole $8,000 we gained last year. And then the final fund is the OPEB debt service at Fund 47. About $20,000 ahead where we were at this point last year. That's kind of set to fulfill that debt payment on the OPEB. And we might even be able to look at in maybe next year's levy of being able to manually reduce that one as well. What happens with the debt levies, the debt in the OPEB debt levy, is the county sets you up to receive 105% of those funds. We tend to collect well in this area, and we get extra there to try to offset the levy a little bit when we can. The next few pages are just going to be details, and I just have a couple of notes to mention. Otherwise, there's really not anything real outstanding here. The real big difference in the general fund activity this year versus last year is the amount of borrowing we did for aid anticipation. Last year we borrowed $750,000 to float cash, and that kept our cash balance positive, but not the general fund positive. Not maybe something that an audit might give you kind of a finding on, but not anything that's going to be really detrimental. The main thing is that business day to day we were operating on positive cash. This last year we borrowed $1.2 million, and that kept the general fund cash positive the entire year. Audit preferred, but we end up paying more in interest for it. So it's really kind of 6 of one, half dozen the other we choose to do. But the reason for the larger activity going out in this year versus last year was the aid anticipation certificates. In food service, you'll see the big real difference for the activity is last year we had paid the month of groceries already, whereas this year we haven't. You'll see when we do bills that there's a large payment to Reinhardt Food Service for paying groceries, and that will show up in your the financials next month. Next fund, community ed, really not a whole lot of difference between last year and this year, as well as the other funds. So kind of what I have for the finance report. If there are any questions you guys have, I can do my best to answer if you have.
Just one on the first page, it's just a small little thing on the bottom here, you got a payroll 130.90.
Is that cash flow? Yep.
Oh, what last year, what is it down there for? It's outstanding. Is it just carrying over and over?
Were you looking at the?
No, down here. No, it's not.
Oh, you're looking at outstanding checks. That's small, the $130. That's just a check they'll have to end up writing off.
Okay.
Usually, it tends to leave them out there for a while until they don't get cash. That one's been up for an excessive amount of time. It's one we just write off. Yep.
Questions for Josh? If not, I would look for a motion to approve the finance report.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Kurt, seconded by Rob. Other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Under new business, we'll begin with consent agenda items, attachment C, D, and E.
There is one change on attachment D under district-wide. The top one, as of 4 o'clock today, right, Lori? We still had not received that formally. So please remove that one.
Which one?
Top one.
The top under district, we have not received. Technically, per contract, we could terminate at this point because it's, you could almost call it a no-show situation, but we're still working with the employee to try to figure out a good result for everybody. But as of right now, you can't be on your voting.
Okay, with that amendment,
First person.
do I hear a motion to approve as shown?
I'll make one.
Motion by Jerry. Your second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Rob. Other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried.
I would like to just publicly, as far as personnel issues go, again, and I know all of you know, but very appreciative of Joe Walls. He has really stepped up to the plate, done a tremendous job down in the transportation department, and I'm very thankful. And obviously you see on here that he's going to be our interim transportation coordinator, but really has stepped up to the plate to do a lot. So I just want to publicly thank him for all that he's done.
An interim means for the balance of the school
It'll be
year.
for the rest of the school year. That's for him and us. You know, it gives us opportunity to see and look at the position a little bit more.
Sure. Approval of the, item B, approval of the expenditures for September and October. You look at a slightly different format.
Just comment on it real quick too. This is the format that comes right out of the system. So when I print this off, it literally takes just a click of the mouse to get it. The report they normally give you has more detail, takes a little while more to put in, but more information for you. And I can certainly present it either direction, but in order that you'd have something in your packet when we sent it out today, we just went with the generated report from the system.
So the other one's manually generated, this is automatic?
Yeah, a little more data entry for me to do, but either way.
The nice thing about the other one is that when you guys have questions on if it's reimbursable, if Ed Foundation paid for it, things like that,
Right.
Josh puts those notes in there, but especially for this month, this was really appropriate.
I see several of the 253.74 bottom line, and I'm guessing that is the payment that we need to make to families at Pearl Field.
The non-public transportation
have to do
reimbursement.
that.
Yep.
We pay for them to our line, so to speak, right?
And the majority end up being just the maximum we can pay them. The actual mileage would be quite a
Way
bit
more.
Sure.
Josh, how about 4546 Team Sporting Goods?
Actually, you look at the check number after payment number, but either one, which one are we looking at?
4546, last page, I guess would be Team Sporting Goods for 3652.
I don't see any 45s.
We're talking about
Is it? I'm sorry.
Check
Check
number.
number. I'm sorry.
Oh, check
Check number 38195.
Yep. It'd be uniforms for wrestling. Sorry, football.
Okay.
Football uniforms.
That's got 40510, $11,000 for Abdo, Ike, and
That's
Ryan.
progress billing on the audit.
That's what?
Progress billing on the audit.
We have to have it.
Progress billing means exactly.
They're not complete with the work, but they put in a substantial amount.
It's a partial bill, basically.
Yeah.
Partial payment. Check number 38162, the Black Health Systems, is for sports.
Yeah, for the no bus driver
Med ops.
testing. It's actually been going on for quite a while. There's some charges on there that won't be the district's responsibility. We pay for DOT physical and a urinalysis, and sometimes they code things that they'll ask you, do you have a cough, and they put that on there too. So the bill has been disputed for a while, and I just cleaned up what our portion is. So. But that's the bus driver training, DOT physicals and urinalysis.
Okay.
I got to ask check number 38192, Super Duper School Company.
Yeah, school supplies for teacher.
Elementary.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just curious.
I won't say anything but copiers. Let's do that.
Thanks.
Okay, I would look for a motion to approve the expenditures.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kurt,
I'll second.
seconded by Brenda. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. The approval of the resolution of the school board supporting Form A, application to the High School League Foundation.
Resolution on this one. This is, Jake Winchell can't be here tonight. Well, it's his birthday, so I told him to stay home with his family so that I could handle this for him. Basically, to be a part of the Minnesota High School League, every year you've seen this. We have to do reporting on this, free and reduced lunch, student athletes, and things like that. So it's just basically the state documentation that allows us to participate in the Minnesota High School League.
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion by Rob,
I'll second.
seconded by Jerry. Brenda?
Okay, so the resolution, let's read the top part here or the whole thing.
I gotta see where we're at.
If you read page 21, you'll be in
Yep,
good shape.
21 would be good.
The whole thing.
Sure.
Okay, the resolution of school board supporting Form A application to Minnesota State High School League Foundation. Whereas the Minnesota State High School League Foundation was formed to provide support for Minnesota's high school youth to participate in athletics and fine arts. Whereas the District 252 School Board recognizes the value of students' participation in extracurricular activities, and whereas the MSHSL Foundation is offering grants and funding to assist school district in recognizing, promoting, and funding extracurricular participation by high school students in athletic and fine arts programs. Therefore, be it resolved that the Cannon Falls School Board supports the district's application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation for a Form A grant to offset student activity fees. Roll call, Kurt,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Brenda, yes, Rob,
Yes.
So that passes by a 6-0 vote. Okay, we're skipping D, jumping down to E, approval of the promotion and marketing committee's mission statement. Rob?
We had a meeting last week. We had Beth, Jake, Dave, was Tim there? No, Derek? My memory's gone already.
It was the four of us, Dave.
And then Mark Mason. And it was a good meeting. I mean, we started off, and I know Beth might have some more to even add, but we're trying to understand what our goal is. Now, you guys all wanted to know that when we started going. So what we've got is to promote the school's activities and the accomplishments of the district in a positive and unbiased manner to the public and student body, to help create a better communication to the public what our school is doing and what we're planning for the future. So it encompasses pretty much the school itself, the community, what we're doing today, what we're doing tomorrow, that we do it equally across the board. It doesn't matter what the activity, what the grade, what the function is. We want it to be unilaterally promoted and marketed, I guess, or for lack of a better term, marketed to everybody. So it gets everyone to understand what we're doing in the district. And that's ALC, elementary, high school, without saying all of that.
Anything to add?
No, it was a very productive meeting. I thought we had people who brought great ideas. It was nice to see citizens and employees and everyone kind of on the same page.
There will be more joining for the citizen
Right.
side too.
Yeah. We had it really sparked a good conversation with the city as well, and Mike Gesme is kind of a part of that now too. And it's really neat to see how the city and school, and I think the hospital, are really becoming united in a lot of things and want to promote. We know that if the city promotes this, we get more people to move to the town. More people move here, obviously more students go to Cannon Falls schools. So it's been nice that way. I think we came up with 3 things that we really wanted to do is continue to use Facebook and social media, what Rob Stahusky is doing for the school, and taking that information from the administration and putting that out, kind of doing a daily blast that way. That's been very, very well received. A video that Mike is going to be working with me on in November, and then brochures that we can get out because our realtors are really, asking for materials that they can hand out. So we're going to focus on those 3 things right now, and I thought it was a great meeting, a really good meeting.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the Promotion Marketing Committee's mission statement.
I'll second that.
Motion by Kurt, seconded by Brenda.
We'll make the next meeting at night.
Other discussion?
I think it's a good mission statement, and I like the 3 points that Beth brought up to it. Sounds like a good plan.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried.
We should add that if anyone is interested, Brenda has agreed to be a second. I don't like to have any committee without 2 board reps. I think sometimes if it's one, it can be very singled out. So Brenda has offered to be on that, but if anyone else has a real interest in this area, let Rob know and he can work with you. So we're excited to have Brenda. We're going to have her. We are going to meet in the evenings for you.
Well, after 6.
We thought maybe you could be our English. Check everything.
I
Problem.
know you have ideas.
Okay, item F, discussion on fundraising. I think we just touched a little bit last meeting about, Kurt had some questions about the direction of some activities. I'm not even sure how to state that, but, and then it morphs into fundraising in general. And I know that we've got a number of fundraisers on our list, and I'm sure that will be, no, I'm not sure. There's a possibility that without the bomber boosters, that will be tweaked somehow in the next go around when we speak. Maybe not, but we're missing a major fundraiser in the boosters, so that may affect other items. But it's worth discussion. We kind of jumped into it prematurely, I thought, last time, but it needs to be discussed. And with the title of fundraising, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but let's open it up. Kurt?
Well, maybe last time, I used the example of fundraising for prom, and maybe that was a bad example. What I'm looking at is, are we looking at all these fundraisers, and are we doing, or are they appropriate for what they're going out there and gathering money for, in the sense that if there's money there, do we continue to go out and ask for more funds? I know there's some funds that have money in them already, and do you continue to, at what point do you have this and keep it in your funds and you continue to go out for more funding? I think there's also should be some accountability for everybody that goes out and fundraises. It's set yourself a budget of what you want, and then establish that and go out and raise money for it. And if you go above and beyond, what do you do with the money from that point on? Can it go into other funds? There's some discussion about, for football, and you have the concession stands there. Can you bring other organizations in from the school and fundraise for that event for one of those nights? Because there's some out there that they just can't raise the money as well as they can, like for football. Just wondering, maybe we should tap into that and look at some of these areas and just say, are we allocating fundraising to the appropriate areas, and are some receiving too much, some not enough, and are they being responsible with the money that's in front of them? I guess that kind of sums it up for me.
If we okay a list of fundraisers in the beginning of the year, and we know what they're going to be and what their outcome is supposed to be, are we getting our fingers in a pie that we shouldn't?
Yeah.
That would be my question, I guess. And there's just different areas of fundraising. There are the approved ones, and I think there's also areas that people fundraise outside of that. We've got a couple of booster clubs now, and if they're doing fundraising on the side, should that be under the auspices of the total fundraising approval that we have? I think that merits discussion. And if you're doing some within the confines of the district and others that not, that's another question. I think this can go, at least a couple of meetings long. So I'm not sure where we're focusing right now.
I mean, it could even go to the time of the year. I mean, if the fall is the beginning of school, that's when a lot of them kick off. Do they get more support than the ones in March and April when they've been fundraised so much already? I understand what you're saying. If they're raising, and I'm going to throw a round number, $250,000 across the board, but they're only needing $200,000, where does the other $50,000 go year after year? And are they being fiscally responsible with the additions? But I understand what you're saying. This isn't our area that we monitor or govern either.
I will say with the things that we've had to cut in the last few years, C-Squad coach is a great example. None of these organizations have these leftover funds you speak of. I mean, we have tapped them and tapped them. We did 6% and then 10% of coaches' budgets, so they're really being tapped. It was a great example somewhat with prom, because it brought up a good conversation of the following year that follows them into their senior year. We don't hand them just a diploma. We hand them a booklet of sorts, or that folding, what would you call that, a binder. Those are things where we used to pay for that. The school should pay for that, but we just don't have those funds anymore. And now we ask those organizations to do that, their corsages at graduation and things like that. So I don't think there's this extra funds that we talk about. Some things like FFA, they have huge fruit sales in the spring, but they also, you don't know how many students are going to go to the state fair. You don't know how many are, that's a lot of transportation. They're living up there for 6 days. They have to do large fundraising to do that. I agree, I don't like to have funds sitting in there either, but if the band and choirs sell so much and they know they're gonna go on a trip in 2 years, that money sits in there for 2 years because they can't fundraise in 1 year, it's better to do it over 2. I think the amount of fundraising is right. I like that this school, if you want a new one, you gotta take one off. You know, this year it was magazine sales turned into a 5K walk, run type of thing. So I think that's good. We're not overdoing the fundraising. But really with the cuts that we've made and we haven't allowed any more fundraising, you know, Josh and I talk about it in the office sometimes. I mean, he struggles to provide everything he needs for his basketball program. If he didn't do an extra tournament or do some sort of fundraising in some way, he wouldn't have the things that he needs for the team either, because we've cut those things, which I think are good. You know, we've said, okay, you go out and find the money. The school isn't providing those things, so.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the sports pay for their own uniforms, is that correct, or does the school fund that?
It's on a rotation, and the school gives you a budget. The coaches use that budget. But what I said is, you know, kind of cut that by 6%. I think the year before it might even been 10.
And
So
the uniform
that
is on
budget
a 5-year rotation. So if you see a team get a uniform more often than 5 years, that's on their own.
That's
Yeah.
You know, and not to put you on the spot,
Mhm.
but you're here.
And you're a coach.
Yeah.
So, do you provide any fundraisers for your athletes that aren't listed? That example, you have a ball tournament.
We host one, but it's an MYS tournament. So it technically wouldn't be typical of the fundraiser you might see on the list here, where we're not going to go out door to door to the banks or the public and ask for it. In actuality, unless I have a team participating in it, there's no Cannon Falls funds coming in for that. They're all teams from out of the area. They line up all the teams, the officials. I got to line up workers. So I do have my kids fundraise, but it's by sitting down and running clock for a 4-hour session, or the parents might come in and take tickets for that session. It's not actually going door to door. If I don't have that tournament, I probably don't have a C-SWAT program, because I need to raise $4,000 just to start the season to have a coach. Anything after that $4,000, then I can look at if I stay overnight in St. Peter with the varsity, if they're going to get warm-ups or travel bags or that kind of stuff with it. But just to start the season, I got to raise $4,000 just to provide teams for each level.
No, not all of our activities are money-making endeavors. Does your basketball team, or the girls, or the winter sports take the concessions, or does that belong to the school?
Well, it kind of depends on who wants to run it, and Beth and I had a little bit of that discussion too, because I asked, it's my basketball game, can I run concessions? It may end up being more of a hassle if I wanted to do that, but I suppose right now it does all stay within the school. Basketball currently right now, Interactives run the concessions, Spanish Club run the concessions, BPAs run the concessions. They do it and it goes into their student activity accounts. Football, a little different right now. It used to be the football or the Cannon Falls Boosters. Now with them kind of out of the picture, it's the football boosters that run the concessions down there. Goes into the football program, the football group. So the money does stay within the activities somewhat, but it's just a matter of who's running the concession that night.
And does that fall under the auspices of the board to say this group has this fundraiser, or has the concession rights? And
We
not?
have tried that before. What happens is if you've got 5 cases of leftover pop, what do you do with it? So now you're losing money. And we did try looking at that and trying to give it to different organizations. What's nice about the 3 groups that run the winter concessions is they pool their money, they buy the food, they buy it through Wendy, they do everything together. They know the OSHA standards that need to be followed in there and all that. When you start getting new entities in there, now now they have to go buy their own popcorn, they have to buy their own popcorn oil, they have to buy their own salt that goes in the popcorn. By the time you buy the supplies, you can hardly afford to run the concession stand. So I don't know, and getting workers to work those games, Josh and I talked about that, is virtually impossible. So unless basketball was going to take over all the concession stands, it would make no sense to do it any other way. The football boosters have bought those the carts and things. They've spent a lot of money in doing that, so I don't know if it would. I don't know if it would be financially smart to rotate concession stands around, but maybe.
Conversely, we have some groups that don't have a lot of opportunity to fundraise. And, if we can provide that for them, it's worth looking into, I think. If you have, whatever, we see BPA and the others that are pooling their resource to have fundraisers, and it seems to me that wouldn't be a bad way to go. But it's a discussion.
Yeah, I agree. I'm great there.
Wasn't that part of the purpose of the bomber boosters, so some of that money got distributed out versus football boosters?
The problem that the bomber boosters fell into is that they were the primary fundraising organization, and they did divvy up the money on a pretty fair basis. And when you want to be competitive in wrestling or football or basketball or whatever, it got to the point where you had to form a MATRATS. I don't know if you had to, but the consensus was we need a MATRATS to start doing this because what we're getting from boosters is not covering our needs to build this program. And I think that, having sat in with the football people early on in their existence here 3-4 years ago, I think they felt the same way. The bomber boosters are doing a good job, but football's an expensive sport, and if we really want to get, if we want to be able to afford a couple extra coaches or something like that, maybe it's, and so I think that the disillusion of the bomber boosters came to the point where there was so many entities doing their own that there was really not a need to have one overseeing.
Here's one thing I'd be interested in, and let's keep it on football because that's the most obvious. How many coaches are being paid? I don't care if it's through the football boosters or through the school. I mean, it seems when I go to a game, there's 10 coaches, and how many kids are really out? 40? I don't know. I haven't counted the list, but it just seems to me, is that the right thing to, I mean, is there plenty of coaches, and how many of those are getting paid versus, some of them I know for all their intent was to be a volunteer.
Well, I think what you're seeing on the sidelines, though, is your 7th grade coach, 8th grade coach. They're also helping out with varsity, but they're certainly not getting paid to be, part of that. But they're there. You're right. You're seeing them on the sidelines. It's just they're not.
And this is really nothing new when you compare this to big city programs. My nephew is a middle school wrestling coach in Wisconsin Rapids, and he's paid by the Booster Club. His stipend for the season is not paid by the district. And the wrestling parents group or wrestling association there raises funds throughout the year, and they make sure that they have the multiples of coaches down through their ranks. Okay, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's done in a lot of places. Reading an article on Eden Prairie, they're much in the same way. I mean, Eden Prairie School District does not fund everything that Coach Grant has there. A lot of it comes out of the booster clubs that support that program. And in this day and age, it's almost the only way you can do that.
Well, when we're cutting athletic budgets and activity budgets in general, and then we replace them with some fundraisers, we're essentially saying go out and earn that money. And I'm kind of torn by it too. We're, if it's football we're talking about in the fall, because that's where we are. Once we okay their fundraiser, how much more involved do we get with how they're spending it? Did they provide us a mission statement, for example, to say where they're going and what they intend to do? Is it our business if they do? So, it's...
I think in regards, because of the fact that they're supporting a school function, it is our business to know what their plans are. I don't know whether it's our business to get our nose into it and try to regulate what they're doing to a certain extent. As long as it's above board. I mean, if everything, pizza sales or cookie sales or whatever sales they decide, concessions, these are all above board. And I mean, if they're lucky enough to sell 1 million hot dogs for a buck a piece on a Friday night. All the power to them.
It's the organizations that don't have, dance has a very strong bomber dance, support. It's the smaller groups like prom that you brought up and FFA and things like that that really need that. And I just don't know, because every year can differ. Last year, they went out and did a great job of getting the facility given to them. It's not even, they're out doing that too. They're not just saying, oh, let's just fundraise. They're looking for discounts and they're looking for the best deal. And, last year I think they did a great job trying to find a place to have it for free.
And I agree. You make a lot of sense in what you're saying, and I agree with that. I guess one concern that we can look at as a board is, let's say, let me pick, say they bought the pits for track.
Sure.
And it's a big expense, $11,000, $10,000, $18,000, $20,000.
Well, those were out of regulation. We didn't
Right.
have a choice on those.
No, and I agree. And
Right.
I'm just saying, at what point does, as a board, is there some saying, okay, you have it in the funds, you raised it, but at what point, who has a decision to say, okay, we're going to go and spend that $20,000 or that $15,000 that we got from the community based upon one person's decision? Is that something that should be taken on by, say, a coach? Well, we want this. It's going to, whether or not it enhances our program, I don't know, but it sure is a nice thing to have. And does the community say, look, we donated the money, but it's one person's decision to go out and buy that, whatever it may be? Is it good for the program, or is it just something that they want for that purpose alone, and all of a sudden now $8,000 goes out the door? Does a board have a say in that, or does a community representation from the board have a say in that?
Can I put Josh on the spot?
Yeah.
Was
Bob did.
last year you
Bob
bought
did.
that shooting
No.
piece of equipment. How'd you guys go about making a decision that's what you're going to use for that money?
It'd be similar to probably how a lot of the coaches operate with the programs. The see a need needs to be fulfilled. I wanted my kids to get better at shooting, and one way to do it would have been the NOAA system that we have. A guy came in and kind of looked at it and like, all right, it would cost $6,000. At the time, the boosters were still in operation. I went to them and asked for some funds towards that. They carried $3,000. Did some work. Had the boys do some work at the youth athletic tournament, do scoreboards. Youth athletic gave us $1,000 towards it, and then had to raise another $2,000 to finish it. But essentially, as a coach, decided that's kind of what we need to have for the program, and then go through a couple different avenues to try to find those funds. Had the boosters not been available, I would have had to try to find either run an MYS tournament in a field house or find another way to run those funds. Same, I would guess, if you to look at Coach Hofstad, if he wants to have an extra coach on his staff, he probably goes to the football boosters and said, hey, I'd like to have 2 assistants for varsity. Can you help? How are you going to do that? And then their board would have to decide how they want to spend those funds.
So kind of the way, as you being a coach, kind of the way you see it, the person that makes a lot of those decisions would be the
head coach.
But there, you have to differentiate between the two things that we're talking about here. I can't think of who sells the candy. Is it the
Band and choir.
Band and choir. That's school, and that's a school thing, okay? And they go out and they sell their candy every year. It's an annual fundraiser, and if they raise $10,000, goes into the kitty, and they use it accordingly to what they need. When you start talking about football boosters and mat rats and dance and stuff like that, those are private entities, and obviously they have to work with us. But they've got a board. I was on Matt Rat's board. I was on Dan's board. It's no different than the Ed Foundation. I mean, there's a board of people who they raise the funds and then they sit and determine how it's going to be utilized. And so we really don't have a say with how they're going to use it. Obviously, we want to make sure that they're using it within the parameters of what we, of our framework. But if the football boosters raise $10,000, want to buy a blocking sled, there's really nothing we can do about that.
There's nothing we can really do on any of it, though, really.
Well, but the point I'm trying to make is that there's a difference between those organizations and the band going out and selling
Right.
So,
but
or the
raise
baseball
money.
cards in the spring that the baseball kids are
Yeah.
selling.
But if the band sells Christmas trees and wreaths and it raises money, who approves the expenditure? Do you?
That all comes out of activity funds.
Who approves that?
Tim is the second signature on there. Stephanie Fox runs the activity funds. It doesn't go into our budget.
Right.
You never see it in here. It's completely
Yeah.
separate, which is good. You don't want that to ever intermix
No,
with school
but
funds.
There's a look for what approval process there is versus bomb boosters, or football boosters. That's their board, but the other approval is Stephanie and Tim then.
Right. I mean,
Okay.
you just want to make sure you have a checks and balances there too. There's some accounts that get really large because they're saving up for something really big. There's other groups that don't fundraise at all. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a cross-country fundraiser because they don't need anything. They go run.
They run by so quickly,
Right,
we can't
right.
give them our money.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
if an entity, band and choir, sells candy, and that's an approved fundraiser, but they have their own booster club and they have 4 more fundraisers, they seem to have 5 now. Is that, what's the point in okaying a fundraiser through the confines of the school and then have them independently? I'm just throwing it out. Because it seems to have gotten much, much bigger, even though at one point in time there was a finite number. And again, I think the bomber boosters in general have a lot to do with that, because
They operate independently, right? So if you create a boosters, it's independent. It's an independent entity that fundraises as they want or can. That doesn't come here at all, right?
well, we okayed or gave support to a booster group, a separate booster group. I would guess it's the school's function, if they don't agree with the mission statement or the direction it's going, that you withdraw support of it. Now, I don't know if that's just a verbal thing, we no longer support the bomber boosters, or if it's a process to say we can no longer support this group. And I'm guessing it affects their fundraising, because if all of a sudden they're not supported by the school, that would certainly narrow or lessen their fundraising.
Without them, our programs would go away very quickly. We really need them. We have cut and cut and cut and cut. If we don't have them out, if the band isn't selling Christmas trees at Christmas time, I don't know how they would do half the things that they're doing. So it's really important that they, But I
Yeah.
agree with what you're saying. It's when is enough. Everyone's kind of got their own boosters now.
I'm not sure I'm saying a thing, but I think it's a necessary conversation to where we're going with this. We're going to approve fundraisers in the beginning of the year. Do we just say, go ahead and do it? Because it seems like it's approaching that now with the separate booster clubs and the separate organizations. They're doing their one that we allow through the system, and then they're doing however many they want on the side.
Well, and I don't want to put the prom people on the spot because they're here tonight, but I think I will. And here's why. It would be very easy. I saw how much work they went into this 5K that they did. It was a tremendous amount of work. One, we got a lot of staff out, community members out in a fun, uniting, and that's what we've all been about this year and last year, getting people out, doing things together. So we're not selling magazines anymore. We're doing things that created unity. But on top of that, we're not charging the kids $200 each to go to prom. Last year it was $30. I mean, I think we need to look at, sometimes these fundraising events are community building too. I see the band kids out there selling Christmas trees, and they are singing carols, and they are having fun. And I think sometimes, if we're looking for a positive, there's some of that going on too, because I saw it happen at the prom. I should call the junior class. It's not just prom because it goes into the following year. I thank you. I know. But, it would be very easy for those advisors to say, hey, I'm in charge of the junior class. This is a lot of work. I don't want to do this. I'm so thankful that they do, because I know there's family. We can find prom dresses for the girls, and we can get discounted rentals, and tuxes, and we might be able to get a decent, cheap DJ and things like that. But we can't turn around and charge these kids $200 a pop to come to prom, because then they don't get to go,
Right. And I agree with that. again, maybe prom is a bad example. I didn't mean to draw you guys here because of that statement. But
they're
there,
upset, too.
yeah, but there, I do
They're
think,
three years in the door.
I do think there still has to be checks and balances here. I think there has to be still some responsibility within the facility of saying we're going to go out and raise money, and we want to do it fiscally responsible, and not have some sort of set established goal. Like you mentioned, Beth, it's like we want to keep costs low. I agree with that. But for someone to go and say, you know, if you need a dress, we're going to get you a dress, and this I'm picking on prom again here, but it's still a cost to a family, and for a family to say, you know, to take that step and say, can you go to them and ask if you can get a dress? It's really hard for a family to do that. I'm just saying, as a community, we need to be very careful as to where the money's going, how it's being spent, because families out there feel it, and we have to be very clear and very specific as to where the money is going, because just to bring it in and then say, well, it's going to go in the budget, if we don't spend it, it's going to go here. It's like, I get that, but do we have to go out and raise funds for it again next year? Or if there's money in the fund already, if there's a large amount in a certain fund, do we do the same fundraising the next year? Or do we let that, you know, if you've got $60,000, $70,000 in a fund, you know, all money out there comes from the community. All money comes from someplace, and we can sit back and we can say they don't have to donate it if they don't want to. But it's awful hard to turn that person away at the door and say, no, I don't want to give you the money right now, even though they approach you at the door and they ask, can you donate $10? And then you see it the next time, and the next time, and the next thing you know, you've given $150. So I'm just saying we have to be cautious because the community is seeing it. They're seeing it door to door. And I'm just saying we need to be very careful how we go about fundraising.
I think it's a double-edged sword.
It is.
You know, if we, one, I don't think we're the approving entity in any way, shape, or form that the money is spent in any way, whether it be through the entity of the boosters or through Tim and Stephanie is approving, so it never comes to us. So there is, you know, I think from what Beth and Bob are saying, there are approval processes.
Yep.
But the other side of it is, you know, I like what Beth was saying as far as, okay, we've got 10% of the athletic budgets, and I talked about, you know, quietly that it would be interesting if we could have the athletics rely more on their own fundraising and less on the general
Right.
fund of the school. Put a percentage across the board on them to say, can they support themselves by 20%? Well, then it's going to have to be by fundraising.
Yep.
Then 20% of our budget stays within our four walls for academics more.
I agree.
You know, so I guess that was one of the thoughts I've had for years is, could the athletics support themselves more?
Right.
I guess if you were
Some
saving
could,
money
some
for
can't.
fundraising, then
Right.
you couldn't.
Yeah.
And I think some can and some never will.
Right.
That's really reality.
That's been educational. I appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry to bring you into this, guys.
They're still sitting between you and the door.
Well, I think this conversation has to be an evolution of things, because, you know, it does, we're discussing things like booster clubs in addition to fundraising, and how assignments are made. For example, on concessions, we have winter concessions that seems to say, I don't know if it was because of a lack of booster club, let's say, but does wrestling have a booster besides
Matt
that?
Rats. Matt Rats.
And did they take their own concessions at high school wrestling? Now basketball,
Matt,
no, it
you know what?
doesn't.
You know, Matt Rats runs a couple of big tournaments in the wintertime. They make a lot of money off of it. And Matt Rats actually turned around and bought the new mats here a few years ago and put money into that wrestling room when they redid it.
Yeah, I don't think that any of the groups are spending money irresponsibly, or we don't have any concern about that really, as far as I know.
To go to Bob's point though is that, and I understand where he's coming from. If you, for example, if the one of the things the football kids sell, if I'm not mistaken, are the pizzas, because I should know because I got like 20 of them at home. But they and that's on our list. And because Bob and I had this conversation a couple weeks ago. So then the football boosters, and I'm not digging the football boosters, I think they're doing a great job. But then the football boosters come to us and they sit down about 4 or 5 years ago and said, here's our plan, blah, 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 blah. We said, sounds great, go for it. At what point in time now are the peripheral fundraisers that they're doing, during the year, not meshing with our list of what we approved them to do. But if they're supporting the program, me personally, I don't care. I don't, as long as if they're expanding that, to me, I don't care.
Again, there's a difference between a booster club and a school-sponsored organization.
Sponsored organization, yeah, exactly.
Would it be, I don't gotta say the rates of, but would it be appropriate for all the entities to list all their fundraisers just as a listing, so we would understand? I mean, if the football boosters is going out 15 times a year, and they've got fundraisers, buried that we don't even know about, is it appropriate that we get a list just so we understand, not to govern or regulate, but so we know what's going on? Is that something that this board should know? I don't know. I mean, with all of the sports,
We can. I think a lot of it is these tournaments and things. That's kind of become the new thing. And remember, we generate revenue. The school does too on that. We charge them to hold those tournaments and things like that. And we on promotions and marketing of the school, we're selling the building. So you list that as a fundraiser, because technically what you're doing is a fundraiser, but really it's a tournament, and the kid, I don't know.
It's the very thing we asked for as a board, is to
Sell the
occupy
school.
our facilities more and bring in revenue, and now we're doing it.
That's what they're doing.
So that it's really a hard call to make.
Because the boosters, the dance, the football, and they're not out selling a lot of things. They're more doing these tournaments and games. And
Is it something where it'd be advantageous to know what's in their funds? Say it comes down for cuts, that as a board we know.
we would never know. They won't tell you.
It's not our
They-
business.
They won't even tell me. I have no idea, nor do I want to know how much the dance, Bomber Boosters dance team has. I don't want to know.
What's that?
Like an activity like ours,
Mhm.
that's school.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
We go strictly through Stephanie, and
Yep.
in fact, Tim asked me for my,
Yep.
and I said, you have Stephanie, she can click a button and there you go.
We can check on it anytime we want.
Very simple.
But the boosters, we
No.
would never
No
know.
control.
Even if you're on the board, I don't think
Well,
you
I
saw
think the
it.
boosters, all our booster clubs are fairly open.
Sure.
They've got their board of
They've got nothing
directors,
to
they've got
hide.
their treasurer's report.
But I don't think we should maybe be asked.
No, I don't know if
We
it's
don't
us
need
to
to
know.
we
It's
don't
not
need
our
to keep it
place.
running. It's not our
I
business.
absolutely agree, Bob.
It's not our business
No.
to know. And I guess just one final thought from me. To me, fundraise. I mean, that's my opinion. I look at a lot of these things when the kids come. My kids were musical, and well, Patrick not so much, but Abby. I mean, when the band kids come around, yeah, write me down. I just bought my yearly spirit book last week. Well, I haven't got it yet, but I bought it. So I mean, I did to me. I mean, I look at stuff like the boosters and wrestling. It's the wrestling families that are supporting it, but basketball families show up for that stuff and so on and so forth. So,
Well, certainly when when our referendums fail, we tell our community this means more participation from parents and others. And now we're seeing the byproducts of it. And it creates a little more hassle for the board because there's some value judgments you got to make. But to me, this is a direct result of that. I mean, we're raising our fees. We're charging entities that we used to let use our facilities, and now we rent them to them. So, to some degree, this is, we're doing what we told the community we'd have to stay afloat.
And I agree with Beth too. It's community building, and it also teaches the kids that if you want something, you have to work for it. You have to pitch in and be part of, raising the money rather than just having it expected to be given to you by the district.
Good point.
Well, I think that the conversation continues, but it's good talk.
Good.
All right. We'll move on. We have a more abbreviated report list. Board members. Anything since last we met?
I would say, and this kind of ties in with the conversation with the fundraising too, I attended the concert at the auditorium Saturday night of Haley Bonner. And it was a really terrific concert, and I think that the thank Jeff McCusker and Brent Sigmund for really drawing some top quality talent from the area. And I thought the attendance was kind of on the low side, so it'd be nice to get more support for that from the community and get people to show up and support these concerts because they're really getting some great talent, and you want it to be worthwhile for the performers to come and do a show and have enough audience out there to make it worthwhile. So it was a great concert, and I'd just like to encourage people to show up for those and support that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we have no student reports, so upcoming meetings. Our next meeting is November 12th. And some of the pre-list on that is the tracker software, election results, winter coaches, and I'd like to add two things to that. One thing would be the aid anticipation discussion.
Yep.
That'd be okay for this
Sure.
meeting? And I'm nearly complete with superintendent evals. So I think that merits some discussion at our next meeting. And I think it's kind of a twofold thing, because when we began our process with our now current interim, it was a 2-year interim. And we understood at that point in time that we would, after evaluation, we'd have to look contractually. So subject to the evaluation, I think the next step is to at least begin discussion. But the evaluations I've got them all. They're very good. So we need to have an open discussion about it. I know it's an uncomfortable time for you.
Can I just leave for that meeting?
No, you have to sit
No.
here. Okay.
You'll pretend you're not there too.
So we will add the soup eval and the aid anticipation. I hope you don't have a lot more going on. Anyone else have anything for that meeting?
I don't know if it's anything significant, but I was just wondering, I was outside running around the track, and then you see the flag, and I'm getting patriotic here, but you see the flag up at night behind the school, and wondering, is there ever anything out there where kids would raise and lower the flag, like in the morning if they have a study hall, and they would raise the flag and take it down before school's over, anything like that?
You know, I am also very patriotic and believe in all of that. It's really hard. You have to be very careful with the flag and how it's handled and the procedures that goes along with it. Schools that have attempted to do that end up running into problems. I think Dave could probably attest to that too. I mean, it has to be taken down the right way. If it was to touch the ground, what has to happen to the flag after it's touched the ground? It's not a minor thing. It's actually a very big deal.
Do we take it down at night?
No.
We don't. Is it supposed to be?
Is it all right on it?
No, it is meant to be exactly how Dave's got it. The one at the elementary is the same. I mean, it's exactly, we're following all the steps, right, Dave, on everything on that?
Yeah, we don't have a light on the one out by the track, but all our other flags, we do have lights on.
They're considered our
Yeah.
main flags, yeah.
And I just thought it'd be a great way for kids showing respect, and it's just,
I love the idea, and honestly, I mean, even as principal, I wanted to do that down at the elementary. I thought it was just such a cool thing, but after really learning from the VFW exactly what has to happen to the flag, if it was to even accidentally touch the ground, it's just, I don't know if I'd be willing to chance it.
I wouldn't be.
Yeah. It's a big production.
yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, though.
Okay, yep.
I appreciate you having that concern.
We got this, we didn't talk about it, we're going to talk about it in another.
No, just
I think
wanted
it's
that,
an
just
FYI,
an
I think.
FYI.
I like it.
If I ever get those, I kind of want it to be in your direction.
I'm going to call you about it because it's all Greek to me. You say it's great. Show me.
Well, I think it just shows, last year increase, this year increase, we're doing the right things.
Yep.
Yes.
So, really excited about it.
Years of decreasing.
Mhm.
Not a math guy, so anything that's got to do with numbers, charts, graphs.
See, and that's why I send those out occasionally,
Is that
because
the
my
insurance?
evaluation's coming up, and you and I can talk on the phone. He likes a pretty graph, trying to please everybody.
Okay, next is public. Next is the public forum. Anyone wishing to speak has an opportunity at this time.
I'll substitute for the student report and let you know that your FFA General Livestock Judging Team, which you didn't have before, is going to state.
Oh, cool. Fun.
Can I add to that?
Tell us a little bit more about it.
General livestock judging?
Yes.
Oh, you have to judge sheep, hogs, beef, and they even threw in goats now. And
Go to sheep.
yeah, kind of. No, not really.
Yes.
And you have to judge them on the hoof, and they have breeding classes and market classes, and they have cull keep classes, and you have to then also give reasons as to why you placed the class. You know, they'll have 3 sets of reasons classes, so you have to be able to justify why you do what you did and use proper terms for each one of the species. And you also have to know how to handle the animals, is what kind of good. You can't tell what a sheep is until you.
To a city boy, you this is a tournament. Doesn't sound right. A convention. How do they get? How does this criteria happen to go to this?
They have several generalized judging contests, and they might actually go to specific species contests, like they just over MEA had the cattle. They have a special name for it up in the cities, and they'll go to places like the National Barrel Show, different places like that, and study different species. But then occasionally they have a chance for other FFAs, or the U of M will put all 4 species now together, and they'll do a run through, and it takes about all day. So it will be kind of a long, drawn out thing. And you'll learn a lot.
You know, there's no reason why we can't invite them to a meeting. Just and just have them tell us what they've done, enlighten us all.
You also have a horse judging team. They do quite good. You have a horticulture team, so you should have this guy in here. They're doing lots of stuff.
Yep.
I just have one thing to say, that I want to wish our 3 board candidates good luck in the upcoming election.
Thanks, Pat.
Saw that, Jerry.
I just want to mention tomorrow night, football playoffs, correct?
Right?
And Thursday night is volleyball playoffs.
Yep.
Nice.
Both home and home.
We drew Stewartville though for volleyball, huh?
No,
Not the second round.
second round. Triton first round.
Triton first.
Cool.
As
Okay.
for football.
Anyone else have anything for the cause? If not, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Rob, do I hear a second? Kurt, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.